Hey everyone, I'm Jay and I do stuff. Quite a while back, I made a video talking about the Kirby anime, Kirby Right Back at Ya, which I highly recommend you watch before watching this video. There I talked about the show as a whole and my general opinions. At one point I did mention the English dub and some of the changes it made. But in this video, I'd like to look at the dub exclusively, and explain why I personally prefer it over the Japanese version. I feel that this version of the show gets a bit too much hate from fans. I think the dub has some generally good points to it, some of which I'd argue hold up better than the Japanese version. I know that's a pretty spicy take, but if you watch me, this thing is kind of expected. It's so easy to hate on English dub of an anime. That's why I like to do these sorts of things, since I'm considered the vocal minority, meaning my opinions apparently don't matter. But I'm gonna talk about them anyway. Kirby Right Back at Ya premiered in Japan on October 6, 2001. It ran until September 27, 2003 with 100 episodes. The show was dubbed into English by 4Kids Entertainment and premiered in the US on September 14, 2002. All 100 episodes were dubbed into English, with none of them being completely cut or unfinished. Some episodes took longer to get dubbed than others, but considering this was dubbed by 4Kids, this was kind of a luxury compared to their other unfinished dubs. Kirby Right Back at Ya was a show made in Japan, catered towards Japan. When it was brought over to America, some changes had to be made in order to cater to the Western audience. Especially since the show was airing on public broadcasting channels, it needed to rake in as many views as it could. Cultural appeal is much different in America than it is in Japan. Localization for these scenarios is something I feel that most anime fans can't seem to understand. As for the changes themselves, some I can understand, but others are a bit extreme. Anything related to guns or deadly weapons were cut. Well, that's not entirely true. Sure, all handgun-like objects were cut out, but there are still instances of cannons, explosives, and weaponized tanks present in the dub. Speaking of, I should probably address King Dedede's infamous tank jeep. In the Japanese version of the show, Dedede's tank had more of a camouflage color scheme to it. In the dub, it was changed to be a brighter orange and purple color scheme. In all honesty, I like the dub version of the tank better. The camouflage colors make it look pretty uncanny, while the dub makes it look like something you'd actually find in Kirby's world. It looks like something King Dedede would own. It even has his insignia. On to other edits, most of the text on signs, books, and places were removed in the dub. Some I can sort of understand since it is in Japanese, but there's some writing in the show that's in plain English and still got cut out. Though this is kinda par for the course as far as 4Kids dubs go. Unless it's integral to the context of the scene, I don't really think it's too much of a big deal. Next is inappropriate scenes. Quite a few scenes had to be cut from the dub for either being too risque or obscene. Granted, most of these scenes are pretty short and irrelevant to the main plot. Examples being someone on the toilet, alcohol, and religious burning rituals. Most of the episodes can be fully contextualized and understood without most of these cutscenes. I stated in my old video that I don't really feel like stuff like said burning rituals belong in the Kirby series. It just feels eerily uncanny to me having such references to actual religious extremism and something about Kirby of all things. In the Kirby anime, there were some character details and story bits that were cut from the dub. A good example of this is the removal of anything related to the Galaxy Soldier Army. To my understanding, there's this whole legion of soldiers who fought against Nightmare called the Galaxy Soldier Army. However, only a few of the greatest of these warriors were called Star Warriors. But in the dub, they changed the ranking of Star Warriors from elite class to anyone who fought against Nightmare in general. This change really doesn't affect me so much. Sure, the term Star Warrior has a slightly higher meaning in the Japanese version, but really, as long as they're all on the same side, it really shouldn't matter too awful much what they're called if you ask me. It's literally just good versus evil. Another change they made character-wise was to Escargoon. You see, as much as King Dedede constantly abuses and hammers him, Escargoon actually kinda has an interest in the king. Kinda like how in The Simpsons, Smithers has an ongoing crush on Mr. Burns. Here's a little clip comparison to show what I mean.
DDD's a rotten boss to work for, that I can't deny. He yells and screams and criticizes, no matter how I try. I deserve a raise, but the king refuses. All I ever get are bumps and bruises. He's a grouch, he's a grump, but I stay. Maybe I'll be king one day.
I don't want to get too deep into a heated discussion about this, but even if they tried to tone down Escargoon's affection, then they did a pretty poor job at it. Even after hearing all his snarky remarks and being a typical lackey, I still got a strong impression that Escargoon has feelings for Dedede even if 4Kids tries to deny it. It's especially evident in the animation and Escargoon's expressions. With most dubbed children's anime, Kirby Right Back at Ya had a completely different soundtrack in the dub than the Japanese version. Why this is done is irrelevant to me, as I couldn't tell you. Whether it be too expensive to license the Japanese tracks or whatever, I just take each soundtrack for what it is. Starting with the opening theme, the Japanese version has two themes, Kirby March and just Kirby. Kirby March is pretty slow paced and really doesn't appeal to me. There just isn't enough energy to it as opposed to Kirby, which is more upbeat with more energy. The opening theme for the dub is called Kirby Kirby Kirby, as I'm sure most people are familiar with. It's this energetic, fast-paced jazz theme.
Kirby, 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 saving the day. Kirby, 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 he's here to stay. Don't be fooled by his size, you won't believe.
I know various parts of it are commonly used in memes, but really, is that such a bad thing? Funny and whimsical moments like these are what make these types of media memorable. The anime is about 20 years old at this point, and to this day, people are still using lines like
Kirby, 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 he's the star of the show. I need a monster to claw with that there Kirby.
For my personal rankings of these openings, Kirby would be on top, followed by Kirby Kirby Kirby, then last would be Kirby March. Now on to the background music. People like to say that the songs in the dub aren't memorable or even represent Kirby music. Oh no, here we go again. But I object to that. I've listened to both the Japanese and the dub tracks, and while I can only speak for my own opinions, I feel that the dub soundtrack holds up just as well as the Japanese version. While yes, the Japanese soundtrack has remixes from the Kirby games, these remixes are kind of far in between and were never officially released. And before you say it in the comments, no, most of the tracks in Kirby Air Ride don't count as they were originally from the anime. A lot of the songs that do play are different variations of the Kirby March opening. Kinda like how in Super Mario World, a lot of the music is just variations of one particular theme. This type of soundtrack isn't necessarily bad, but as I've stated earlier, I don't particularly care for Kirby March. So most of the soundtrack really doesn't do it for me, as the kids like to say these days. What does that even mean? Onto the dub, its music is made up of completely original tracks. While this might be biased talking since I did grow up watching the dub, I really do like most of the tracks here and feel that some of them fit their respective scenes just as well as the Japanese ones. You see, while most of the tracks in that version are based off Kirby March, a lot of them are pretty slow paced and lack energy. In the Kirby games, the music is mostly comprised of faster paced songs that have a peppy, energetic feel to them. The Japanese version does have some beats with similar energy, but the dub I feel has this in spades. So even if they're not the exact songs from the games, the music in the dub still retains that energetic spirit they have. You can't tell me that these tracks are objectively unmemorable when there are people uploading their own rips of said songs without dialogue. That's more on you rather than the quality of the show. Now we come to the number one make or break point of any dub, the voice acting. Most of the characters in the original Japanese version sound pretty much how you'd expect. They mostly sound pretty basic and kinda generic. Tiff sounds like a girl. Tough sounds like a boy. Meta Knight sounds like a typical Chad. There are a few unique voices like how DDD sounds like a creepy old man and Escargoon sounds kinda nasally and slimy. The dub, however, is where things get a little wild. DDD has this Colonel Sanders-like voice.
Them plunderers is looting for camping treasures, and them treasures is property of the king!
Escargoon sounds much more fruity.
If the monster's in him, he won't get angry at me no matter what.
Meta Knight has this Spanish accent, giving him more of a Zorro vibe, to name a few.
Kirby, my king has commanded me to challenge you to a duel. Prepare for battle, and prepare to be defeated.
Most of the voices in the dub are pretty out there and are pretty funny for better or worse. Some people claim that these voices are bad because they're silly and sound like clowns. But think about this for a moment. Characters with outrageous, silly voices are part of what make them so iconic. I mean, for big series staples like DDD or Meta Knight, one of the first things you think of when you hear of them is their voices in the dub. Those voices are iconic for these versions of the characters, like it or not. Nobody ever talks about or uses their Japanese voices in videos like comic dubs on YouTube. Look at Mario. Sure, he's had many voices in the past.
You know, Luigi, living in dinosaur world can be bad for your health.
But the number one voice we picture him with is his higher-pitched Italian accent.
Let's go!
Anything else just doesn't sound the same, even if it sounds more normal. What I'm getting at is, just because something looks or sounds different does not immediately make it bad. This is the kind of constant mentality I hate with a passion. 4Kids dubs have a tendency to add silly, punny dialogue to scenes that don't originally have them. They even go as far as to cut and twist parts of overarching stories, whether it be for some kind of censorship or marketing. While the Kirby anime doesn't have too strict of an overarching story, lots of scenes have added humorous lines and puns. However, unlike most 4Kids dubs, this stuff is freaking funny.
I'm ordering a new monster!
Could you order me some aspirin?
If my insurance don't cover this, you're gonna hear from my lawyer.
It's DD Delightful, because everything else just stinks. Make way, losers.
Mr. Curio, here's that instant soup you like.
The doctor told me it's too salty.
You're too salty too, Curio.
At least he gave you a second opinion.
Keep on snacking, you puny pest. I bet that melon muncher could eat till the cows come home and then eat the cows too.
I hope you get a flat tire.
What's she so mad at you for?
I've known her 40 years, Gus, and I still don't know.
Women.
First, we will start with the appetizer, a succulent duck.
I think I know that duck.
That's a bathtub, not a playpen.
My dreams are shattered. How will I ever fill this emptiness?
I just do what you normally do. Have 7 cheeseburgers.
What's your name, sir?
Why, you two-faced donut-hoarding, hairy-lipped, double-crossing no-good!
How do you spell that?
Let's interview this poor schlub to get his reaction. So what is your reaction to this mess, you poor schlub? Then at 8, the staff of DR confronts an outbreak of hernias. Bad ones. I am so not ready for my close-up.
Forget Kirby Right Back at ya, forget the TIFF show, and forget DDD coming at ya. They should have just made this S-Cargoon says the darndest things. If you liked those clips, check out Kirby TV Out of Context on Twitter. They post some great ones. Most anime fans seem to have such a low tolerance for really any changes the dub may bring, let alone any humor. Granted, humor is subjective, but when it's used to good effect, I get a good chuckle out of most of these lines. Believe me when I say it takes some good stuff to make me laugh. By comparison, most of the lines in the Japanese version feel really flat, more serious, and basic. It could just be the subtitles being shoddily translated, but I find the lines here really devoid of any personality and soul. This especially feels off considering the show is episodic with lots of silly stuff going on in each. Call the dub's writing cheesy and cringe all you want, but I'd rather listen to something cringe that at least has soul. So there are some of the reasons why I like the dub of Kirby Right Back at ya. I know there are a lot of fans of this show who strongly prefer the Japanese version and hate the dub with a passion. Most anime fans see this logo as a sign of the devil anyway. The point of this video wasn't to say that people who say the sub is better are wrong. The point was to hopefully open people's eyes and realize that the dub does have some genuinely enjoyable points and isn't a horrible mess like they claim it to be. I truly believe that this is one of 4Kids' better dubs. I don't expect everyone to get what I'm saying and expect 5-paragraph essays telling me why my opinions are wrong. Even worse when people like said replies as if they agree on why I'm wrong. It can really make a guy feel just that insignificant. But I guess some people just refuse to listen to reason. But all in all, it comes down to subjective preference, whether people think it's objective or not. I hope someone got what I was trying to say at least. That's all I've got, so see you later. Thank you for watching the video. If you'd like to be notified about when I upload a new video, click that subscribe button and also click the little bell icon next to it. I'd love to show my video projects to as many people as I can.